Hello, hi everyone. Just seeing if we can get all of our speakers assembled, but no worries. Let me just start off by introducing everyone to this session. For all of you who are on the line, and hopefully more will be arriving, this is a session on finance. We are catalyzing finance for women entrepreneurs. Women raise their climate ambition in Africa is the topic for discussion for this session. We have about 45 minutes together. And I see my team of speakers are slowly making their way onto the screen and into the window and looking very sharp, I might add. Everyone's looking fantastic. I see Chanda has also arrived. Hopefully we can get you spotlighted momentarily, and I understand Lelemba, there she is on her way as well. It is the top of the hour, so I will get us started. Hello, everybody. My name is Carrie Bojanin, and I am the founder of the Rallying Cry. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Rallying Cry in a moment, but I'm just going to start with me, which is kind of a strange thing to do because who cares about me? But I am going to tell you about me because it's important, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I'm half Finnish, I'm half Chinese, I grew up in the US, I'm married to a Dutch guy, I'm living in the Middle East, and I'm working in Africa. I have a law degree, an MBA, I'm a rescue diver, and a certified yoga instructor and executive coach. So why do I tell you all this? Because we often forget in finance that people actually are what matter most. We need to show up as our whole selves with every single tool in our toolboxes if we want to address gender and climate challenges together. So the invitation today to our speakers assembled here and our audience is to show up for the world as your whole, fullest self, using it every tool that you have acquired along the way in your professional and personal journeys to say, how are we going to look at climate change through a lens of finance in a different way? So I have been working in the financial sector for just about 20 years at the intersection of business, society, and our planet. Before we jump in though, and this has been happening throughout the day and will be happening throughout the day, I want to take a moment to not only invite ourselves to show up in our fullest form, but to invite our most important stakeholder in every climate conversation we will ever have, our planet. I'd like to invite us to just take a small pause and breathe. If any of my speakers are feeling a little bit nervous, if people are running around like crazy, I'm pretty sure everybody could use just a moment of calm in this day on a Friday. So the team from Listening to the Earth have set up a beautiful COP meeting opener for us. And because I'm a yoga teacher, I'm of course going to ask you to breathe. So I'll tell you when to breathe in and when to breathe out. And just close your eyes, everybody, and just take a moment. Sitting or standing, feel the presence of the earth under your feet. Now breathe in. Draw the power and stability of mountains into your feet and legs. Now breathe out. Feel the spaciousness of air in the forests of your lungs. Now breathe in, inhale, sense the liveliness of the soil in your organs and tissues. And then breathe out. Let yourself be tickled by the vibrant biodiversity of your own microbiome. Breathe in. Feel the flow of life in the rivers of your arteries, veins, and lymph. And now breathe out. Connect to the sunshine of wisdom in your mind's eye. Last breath, breathe in. Open your heart to the ocean of love that heals and regenerates. And exhale, breathe out and be together in this community, in this here, and this now. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And it's from this place that we begin. So really pleased as the Rallying Cry to be here hosting this session. This Rallying Cry is an ecosystem initiative developed in partnership with FMO and a whole range of stakeholders to do two things: shift capital to, and secondly, shift narratives about women climate entrepreneurs. We're starting in Africa, and we're mostly starting in the agribusiness sector. So I have here assembled an amazing team of women from the African continent to share their climate ambitions and what they're doing from their respective roles. So to get us started, we have Boholo Kenuendo, who is the UN High-Level Climate Champion and the Africa Director. Boholo, let's hand it over to you to get us started on what you see as the role of finance in unlocking potential of women climate entrepreneurs in Africa. And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you're showing up today.
Thanks, Carrie. Good to see everyone on this call. And I might add, I am at the airport because I'm already on my way to Sharm el-Sheikh. And the breathing was such a really nice calming factor and a really nice way to get started, especially after so much up and down. And I've already had my first flight, so I'm in between flights. So I am very, very pleased to be joining you today and to share a little bit about the work that we're doing at the Champions and outside the Champions. I'm very passionate about not just economic empowerment of women, but agency, creating agency for women and having them show up and participate fully and to their best abilities in our economies. And when I say in our economies, I like to reference both modern economy and indigenous economies, because I see those as very key for where it is that we want to go, and very key for delivering the planet that we want. So today I must admit, Carrie, it's very difficult to get back into my normal zone of speaking. I'm feeling very, very relaxed. It's very good, but thank you. So I need to just come back to myself as we speak about the role of unlocking potential of women climate entrepreneurs in Africa. I want to start off by thanking, of course, yourselves, Carrie, and your team at the Rallying Cry and She Changes Climate, who got us together and got us thinking about women before we are in Sharm. There will be a lot that happens at Sharm, and in our mandate of driving non-state actor participation in the climate action space, we will have, we've built such a strong momentum this year in addressing what we see as main challenges for the continent. And what we hope will resonate with a lot of people is that there has been such a very strong focus on adaptation and resilience, which we believe are key issues for the continent. And we are seeing so much non-state actor participation in that space. And it is for this reason alone that I wanted to start off by commending yourselves and the She Changes Climate team for coming together to discuss this issue around financing for women, because adaptation and resilience truly do need a focus of women, because we know women are disproportionately affected by climate shock and their vulnerabilities due to them being in most societies the most poor, the least employed, and the inequalities usually have a female face. So if we're going to have a strong focus on adaptation and resilience, we must certainly think about how financing adaptation and resilience will have a very special focus on financing for women. So finding solutions for this very complex and of course very multidimensional climate and sustainability challenges by women requires us to unlock finance and have some very serious radical collaboration and systems change. And I'm smiling at radical collaboration because I believe this is what we're seeing in particular with this event, because different organizations and women are coming together to ensure that we are speaking about this, but also not just speaking to the challenges, but pointing to the solutions, which is very key. And one other thing I want to speak to about COP, we are going to COP27 on the back of a lot of issues and challenges, least of them all, and not least of them all being that we are right in the middle of a geopolitical instability. And though that very big point will, of course, be right at the center of COP27, but we feel that, you know, over and above all of this, the radical collaboration that we've seen around non-state actors is one to be commended, and there should be a much stronger spotlight on what everybody else is doing, and hopefully non-state actors will be able to push member states to have higher ambitions and higher action and delivery. So in coming back to finance and policy, you know, in the continent at the moment, we estimate that we need about $2.8 trillion between 2020 and 2030 in order to implement the NDCs. And this cost of the continent's contribution to limiting warming to 1.5 degrees and addressing the biggest impacts of climate change. While we state this figure, it's very important that we continuously, and I know some people say, well, you know, we all have to do something, but we have contributed the least amounts of emissions as we stand. And what is worrying is that we are the least prepared continent when it comes to adaptation, and yet we are the most vulnerable to climate shock. And so we need to be able to unlock that $2.8 trillion as quickly as possible in order to address these challenges, lest we have to pay a lot more in specifically in tackling issues of adaptation and resilience. However, annual climate finance flows to the continent at the moment only stand at about 30 billion, which roughly is about 3% of the total climate finance around the world. And we've seen climate finance growing by multiples, 15 times growth in climate finance, and very little of it coming to the continent. We still see FDI being more driven towards dirtier industries and less being towards cleaner industries. And by comparison and ratio, we're looking at about a 9 times gap between FDI flow to dirty industries versus cleaner industries and adaptation and resilience. And obviously this gap is one that needs to be dealt with quite quickly. There are many other issues around finance that I don't really want to spend a lot of time in, and some of you might have joined us at the Africa Regional Forum in August. We had a session that specifically focused on gender lens investing in the continent with a focus on our adaptation and resilience. And I want to highlight about 3 points that came out of there. One was while we focus on gender lens investing, we should make sure that we are speaking to issues of infrastructure as well, because access is one of the biggest challenges for women, especially those that are in business, especially those that are in the informal sector. So access, infrastructure that creates access is very key when we think about financing infrastructure for women in total, because if they cannot reach a place, then they can't do business, then their agency and role in economic development becomes hindered. And then secondly, one of the points that came out of the ACW session is we must develop a toolkit. We must have guidance of what it looks like and what truly gender lens investing means, because there are still a lot of businesses, financing infrastructure, financing institutions that claim to have a gender lens investment. But when you think about it, when you dig deeper, you do not see it. There is those that manage, you know, we speak a lot about greenwashing, but we do see a lot of people that put at the front, a lot of companies that put at the front a position that they are women leaning, but the actual fact being that a bulk of their budget still does not have women-facing businesses, women employing businesses, and women serving women-owned businesses. So that is a challenge that we must all address. And I know that Kite Insights and 2Exco and them have a toolkit around that, but we absolutely need one that is specifically focused for Africa. I know I have jumped to the recommendations coming out of ACW, but I feel like they were so important that came out that we need to address it. And then the third recommendation that came out was financing for clean cooking and financing for household and home ecosystems, because sometimes we start to think much more broadly about a role in the macroeconomy, and we forget about thinking more about the micro side. And this part was so welcome as a contribution at ACW, because it started us thinking about that if you provide financing for clean cooking and clean home ecosystems, then you are inadvertently also dealing with protection of biodiversity and dealing with issues of health and increasing productivity. So those are the top three that I wanted to mention in this particular call. And I'm gonna just ask Carrie again, how much more time do I have left?
Well, I think
2 more minutes.
I think that was good to get us started. And of course, you know, Bogolo, depending on how much time you have before your flight, you know, you are obviously now part of our speaker group. So you can also add the things that you want to add in. My idea is to have a little bit more of an informal conversation with this group rather than like a really boring sort of stiff panel. So if there are things you really want to say now, you can. If you want to weave it into the conversation, you can also.
Okay. No, I think just focusing on some of those outcomes out of ACW, especially because they were fed in by some of our partners, was really key for me. And then I can wait and weave in a couple more thoughts about how we can amplify first what is already being done, but secondly, how we can really ensure that there is progress within the continent, because we have been talking about and we've recognized that in order for us to deal with development, we must look at issues for women and focus on women-facing development strategies and policies. And yet there's very little progress that has been made. I know progress has been made, but it should be more. So I would like to hear and discuss more about what are the opportunities and pathways for us to really maintain the momentum that has been built thus far, and for us to truly have impact in everyday people's lives. Thank you, and back to you, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Bogolo. So there's quite a lot there. And I think, you know, we do want to think about what does progress look like. And with this group here, I mean, we have a global focus with this particular summit, but here we want to zoom in on what's going on the African continent. And I think for me, you know, when we talk about gender lens investing and we talk about the progress that needs to be made, it feels to me like a big opportunity there is, you know, African women for African women by African women, you know, getting it done. And so the group we have here assembled today is looking at that value chain approach, right? We have two entrepreneurs who are on the front lines of climate change, right? And part of what we're doing is making sure that we have women's voices represented in the conversation in the room at COP. Both Lelemba and Bupe, who you'll meet in a moment, are going to be at COP next week, which is fantastic, right? Starting to get more African women's voices in the room. And it's about shifting narratives, right? You're talking about Africa being the least prepared to deal with climate change and the most heavily impacted, but we're also hearing from the women themselves. We don't want to be known as victims of climate change. We see ourselves as the agents of change. And so I have today two powerful agents of change. Well, actually I have 5 powerful agents of change on this screen that I'm looking at. But I want to start and flip it. Usually when we talk about finance, we always go straight to the money. But sorry, money ladies, we're going to have to wait a minute to come back to you because I want to start and build up, right? Let's go to the ground level. Let's go to the front lines of climate change where things are happening. So I'd like to first start with, I'll introduce both Bupe. Bupe, just give a little wave. That's Bupe Chipili Mulapesi. She is based in Zambia, and she's the founder and pioneer who is driving Farm 23 organic strawberry production. And we'll hear a little bit more about her story in a moment. And then I have Sarah Ngwenya. Just give a little wave, Sarah, if you can hear me. Yep, just checking audio. She is the founder and visionary behind Kalomo Grains Marketing Limited. And so we're very fortunate that they've taken time out of their busy lives and schedules to be here. Bupe, just starting from alphabetical order, nothing going on here. Just wanted to start with you to just say hello, briefly share with us, what are your climate ambitions? Let's just start with there and just, do a small thing just to get us going. What are your climate ambitions?
Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for having me. And hello to everyone on the panel and everybody joining us. My biggest climate ambition is actually to see an environment, a toxic-free environment, where a producer like myself, a food producer like myself, is able to produce a healthy product that is healthy for the environment and as well as healthy for the human consumption. Because in the recent past, I'll talk about the experience we've had in our business and in our continent and our region in particular. We have noticed that there's been a lot of depletion of a lot of minerals in our soil because of in the recent past, we've practiced a lot of synthetic application of chemicals and fertilizers into the soil. So we've noticed that it has affected a lot of our production range and also the quality of what we are putting out as a product. So my mission basically is to see us going back to our forefathers' methods and practices of production of food and production of consumable foods that are healthy. And also, we also help the environment to also heal. So I'm on a campaign to actually, which I have tagged as healing the soil. So I'm on a campaign where I am trying to amplify, and I feel like this platform is the best platform to do that, to amplify the need to heal the soil so that we are able to help the environment heal and also produce a good product.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bupe. Beautiful. Let's just have a moment to allow Sarah to introduce her climate ambitions into the room and the conversation. We'll come back to you, Bupe, but Sarah, over to you. Let's just collect our ambitions first.
Our Kalomo Grain Marketing Limited's climate ambitions. Over the years, we've seen how our environment has been impacted by specifically the rural people where we work from, where they cut down on trees just to find a livelihood. And so over the years, we've lost our indigenous trees and affecting our ecosystem. And so we came in with providing a solution, obviously, to these vices. And so we are into legume production. This is seed, and these are indigenous to Zambian soils. These are seeds that our forefathers were using. They never used commercial seeds. And so we picked up on that line to try and multiply our seeds so that we can, start giving these seeds to our women. Currently, our network is at 9,000 women. And so we multiply these seeds using, partnering with them. And so when we multiply this seed, we obviously have a seed bank. And so they get an income because these are high value seeds, because they are organic and high value. So we purchase them at a high cost. And so that just gives them a good income. And so we are determined to ensure that we have a lot of women that are joining into this program that we are having right now. We have gone into Angola, we are into Botswana, we are into Zimbabwe, you know, taking ground in the southern region, and also ensuring that we build on a state bank. So that's what we are doing. And also this poses, you know, for the women out there, the women that are, you know, are aspiring to be part of this movement, you know, they are excited because these are, you don't have to use any chemical because these are indigenous to the Zambian soils. So I think that's the line that we've taken for ourselves.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And I think these two stories that Bupe and Sarah have shared are quite inspiring in terms of that return back to the soil, and what I like and think is exciting, both in this forum of She Changes Climate, but also thinking about women's leadership as part of the solution to address climate, is how women are always stepping into a gap, right? I mean, these women here that you're hearing from are not looking to be the next unicorn or the next IPO. They're saying we see a hole in the market and a problem that needs solving. And so we're going to step into that and find a solution. Oh, and by the way, we're going to bring thousands of other women along with us. So what Bupe and Sarah have both done is trained thousands of other women farmers to be able to be part of the solution of healing the soil and feeding future generations, as well as feeding communities and families now. I'm going to turn to two other inspiring, amazing women who are also taking thousands of other women along with them on their journey. I'm going to start with Lelemba Phiri, who is the founder of Africa Trust Group and has been a female fund manager for some time and is doing some amazing stuff. Lelemba, maybe introduce a little bit about yourself and the fund, the funds that you're running, and share what are your climate ambitions.
Afternoon, everybody. It's so good to be here. And I love hearing the stories from the ground. I think it gives us a constant reminder of, on the finance side, one, how much more work we still have to do, but also keeps us really connected to the work that matters, right? So Africa Trust Group is Genderlens investment fund manager. We have two funds that invest in women entrepreneurs in Southern and Eastern Africa. Our seed fund, the Enigma Ventures Fund, is industry agnostic and focuses on investing ticket sizes of about $200,000 to $1 million in women entrepreneurs. And we have a smaller fund called the Empress Fund that is a pre-seed fund looking at investing more innovative financing solutions, particularly in the space of agri, climate, and energy for women entrepreneurs. I think it's a big gap that we saw, particularly at the earlier stages of these enterprises, that because of the unique context and culture that we have in the region, that they were falling through the cracks between your traditional lenders and the venture capital profile. And so thinking of ways to really still fill some of that gap whilst still creating a commercial viability for ourselves, but enabling them to do something that could be catalytic and position them maybe for further investment or even just like organic growth. And so those are the two funds. And we're excited to be working with Wupe, who's our most recent portfolio company with the Empress Fund. So good to see you, Wupe. Yeah.
Thank you, Lelemba. Do you want to just say anything about your climate ambitions and those of the fund?
Yeah.
Empress Fund.
Yeah. I think gender inequality overall is such a pervasive and fundamental barrier to development. And I think when we start talking about genderlens investing and thinking about these unique sectors, particularly, it's important to note that not everything will be like cookie cutter, and that we have to be a lot more creative and innovative in how we think about solving for finance for women in these particular sectors. So my ambition is definitely to create more fit for purpose financing instruments that serve the women who are on the ground, who are building these solutions. I mean, you know, these are just some of the stories that we get to hear and that we get exposed to. And there's so much good work, and that's both commercially viable and also highly impactful. And so the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I think the finance sector is leaving a lot of money at the table by not thinking about it a lot more creatively. And so my ambition for the climate sector is that we do have a lot more of a level playing field, particularly with access to finance for women who are solving the problems on the ground. Yeah.
Fantastic. Love it. We'll come back again also to you, Lelemba, but let's also allow Chanda to step into the conversation and introduce herself and Zanaco and share a little bit about your climate ambitions.
Thanks, Carrie, and good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Sharm el-Sheikh. Got here yesterday. It's beautiful. So all of you who are coming to COP, you will just absolutely love it. The weather is fantastic. I'm super excited about this panel discussion. So Carrie, thank you so much for having me. So I work for the Zambia National Commercial Bank, known as Zanaco, biggest bank in Zambia. We've been in existence since 1969. And we're very passionate about women in business. We recently launched a product or a proposition called Z Women, which focuses on in Zambia, women who have businesses and growing the businesses of these women. So that's very critical for us. In terms of our ambitions, really there are three prompt. So we're looking at business, we're looking at operations, we're looking at community. And in terms of business, I think for us, what's very critical is making sure that we are financing the right businesses, financing climate smart businesses, financing women that are running climate smart initiatives. We do have a few already on our books, and we're really calling out to get more women on board. We recently signed a finance facility with the British, and this is a facility of $50 million. And there are two things that we're financing in that initiative, and that's gender, climate smart initiatives and climate initiatives. So this is for women and this is for climate. So calling upon women, Sarah, Wupe, please, you do qualify. So I will be reaching out to you as well. And just to get as many businesses and as many women-run businesses on board. So we're excited about that. So that's under the gender piece, but we're also looking to work very closely with our suppliers, very closely with our other clients. We're looking to lower the bank's downstream Scope 3 emissions. So of course, working very closely with our third party and our stakeholders to make sure that is done. We recently obtained GCF accreditation, so very excited about that. And I'm hoping we do get more funding to then pass on to as many businesses as possible. So for us, it's a matter of providing finance to women, but we're also looking to the non-financial benefits. So what else can we do for these women in business? What else can we do for these women in climate smart agriculture or climate smart initiatives? So it's also the training that we provide in partnership with organizations like the Rallying Cry, and what difference can we make to these women? How can we help them grow their business apart from just providing that financial leg that is so important? But there's also the non-financial benefits that we need to work with, and how do we get them to get their products across the border? And Sarah already spoke to the number of countries that she's managed to penetrate. And I think we're able to do that and support as many businesses as possible. So Carrie, I'm using my phone because the internet at the hotel is not the best. And I'm really hoping you managed to capture what I just said.
We heard it all, Chanda. Thank you. Yes, I'd heard that there would potentially be some internet challenges in Sharm el-Sheikh. So you are embodying and living them for us, giving us the advance warning. Well, I did hear everything. So that's fantastic. And just before I move on, I don't know, Bukholo was moving around at the airport. Bukholo, I didn't know if you wanted to put any of your personal or organization level climate ambitions into the conversation as well. Maybe not. Okay. I know it's hard when you're at the airport and moving around. Okay. So look, I'm amazed. I'm excited. Well, I'm not surprised by all of your climate ambitions because of course I know all of you and have been talking about this and engaging with you. I'm wondering if anybody in the audience is surprised to hear about what all the different things that you're doing. And as I'm listening to all these things, I'm thinking, gosh, how hard can it be? We have two amazing entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things for climate on the front lines and running these amazing businesses. We have these two different types of approaches to finance. how hard can it be to just connect them in the middle and finance all the amazing solutions that we need on the African continent? My goodness, it shouldn't be so hard, right? Well, no, that's not true. I mean, part of the rallying cry, our work is to find you and bring you together and get you to meet in the middle. But how hard can it be, right? What else, do we need to be able to unlock these kinds of conversations and opportunities? How many Bupes and Sarahs are there across the African continent? And I would argue there are probably quite a few more, right? And it's just a matter of finding them and amplifying their work, shining that spotlight and connecting them to the capital that they require to grow and scale their businesses. So since we have this audience here and we want to think a little bit bigger beyond just this example, although I think these examples that we have here are very exciting, let me come back and I'll mix it up. This time, Sarah, I'm going to go to you. What would you want capital providers to know about you and women climate entrepreneurs like you, so that if we were to say, okay, Bokgolo, we know that there are, this number of Sarahs and Bupes across the continent. These are the tools that we need. These are the, approaches we need. What do you want capital providers to know about you and others like you?
Thank you very much. I would really want them to know that there's potential in the rural population, because most of the times, rural people are perceived as, they can't add value to anything that goes there. I can safely tell you in terms of numbers, when you look at the Zambian production per year of either maize or legumes, you find that 80% comes from the rural population and the 20% comes from the commercial farmers. That already tells you that there's serious potential out there. And we want them to know that currently at Kalomo Grain Marketing Limited, we are building up renewable energy. We are already at 40 kilowatt renewable energy, and we are using it to produce edible oils. And when you look at even the seed that we produce, we are trying to, get ourselves a seed bank, because now our volumes of women are increasing. Women and youths actually are increasing. And so we want to put up a 10 million, production seed bank where we can store this seed, because we don't want them to deplete, And also, as I can tell you, for the fact is that last year we went to Congo to do a trade mission, and we came out with a $6 million contract where part of the failed seed that doesn't meet the standard, because this seed is regulated by the seed control sector here, the government seed control sector, and also the research center for the government. So whatever we are doing is legit. It's not like we're just going in the field and picking up seed. This is certified seed by government. So we are trying to build that type of a seed bank, considering that the volumes of women that want to start growing this seed is increasing. And so also our production into Congo, because right now Congo is our biggest market, and also biggest in the uptake of our cooking oil, because some of the line of products that we do is cooking oil. We do also instant baby porridges. We also do soya chunks. Those are soya nuggets. So we want to, when you look at the market uptake in the southern region, you find that South Africa is the highest consumer next to Congo of edible oils in this part of there. So there's an opportunity there. So we want to tell our funders that they must not just look at us like, oh, these women, they talk too much. No, they must come and visit us and see what we are doing and the impact that we are creating. Also, Carrie, I can tell you that most of the women that we have engaged with, the good story that comes out from there is that they're able to take their children all the way to the university, things that never used to happen before. And you see, that's the impact that we are creating, that now kids are going to higher learning institutions. So I think for now, that's what I want to know. And also saving our environment. We are replenishing ourselves so that the next generation that comes after us, they'll find a better soil as opposed to the one that we have inherited, where most of our trees have been cut down.
Wow, thank you, Sarah. Gosh, there's so many things that you just said that I would love to spend more time on. I mean, I'm thinking about, what you just said about being able to send children to universities, and how many of my friends in Zambia who have gone on to university and master's degrees and have been working at the banks and have quit to go back to farming. So I don't know, maybe it'll all come full circle in any case, but lots there that you mentioned. And let's just flip it around a little bit and make it a little bit more of a conversation. And sorry to put you on the spot here like this, Chanda, but I know you always rise to the occasion. You know, you mentioned some of the things that Zanaco is doing. When you hear Sarah's story, what is it? What are the like ding 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 kind of things that are happening for you when you hear that kind of opportunity? What is exciting to you about Sarah and what she's just said?
Thanks, Carrie. I think one of the things that has really stood out for me from what Sarah has said is impact. I think sometimes we underestimate what impact these projects can actually have. So it's talking about how these projects would actually put food on people's tables, how children can go to school, and how that will better our economy and create future leaders. So all this is very critical. And I think from the bank's perspective, the question that we constantly ask ourselves is, how can we solution for these women? How can we solution for these projects to make sure that we're providing the right services, the right products, the right solutions for Sarah's business, for Wupe's business? And I think that's very critical for the financial sector, being able to listen to the potential customers, being able to listen to the existing customers and understanding what products, what solutions we can take out. So what we do as a bank is we make sure we sit with our women. So we actually sit with our women and we have focus groups and we try and gather as much data as we can, even from platforms that we use across the bank, whether it's social media, just trying to understand what our women are looking for, what our customers are looking for. I mentioned earlier that we launched what we call the Z Women's proposition. And this is pretty much a proposition that was created for women by women. So we sat with our customers and we asked them, what are you looking for? And one of the things that was very critical was the fact that our women came back to us and said, banks don't listen to us. Banks don't know what we want. And I know that Sarah and Wupe have actually been and had those conversations before. I remember attending a function where Sarah was speaking and Sarah actually said that. She said, banks, you don't listen to us. You don't know what we want. So Sarah, I hear you. And it was after that presentation of yours that I actually went back to the team. I'm like, guys, are we actually listening to our women? Are we actually listening to our customers? So the proposition that we have is something for women, by women. And we continue to reinvent this proposition. We continue to say, guys, what else can we do differently? How can we solution for Sarah? How can we solution for Wupe? And we know that, as we continue with these engagements, we'll be able to make a difference. And Carrie, it's actually forum like this, it's fora like this that you can actually listen to women and come up with these solutions that will help our female businesses grow. So yeah, Sarah, we're open for business. We will be coming to you.
Thank you, Chanda and Sarah. And I think that's the point of these types of forums, right? Is creating these local solutions and having women's voices be heard and seen and counted. And part of why She Changes Climate is advocating for 50-50 representation in things like COP, right? We can't solution for women if there's no women in the room. It just doesn't work. And so we need more women in finance. We need more women driving investment committees, making those financial decisions, developing the products and services for women, by women, right? We need a lot more of that, but we also need a lot more of the men to champion investing in women, right? We don't want to redo the entire financial sector. Well, we could talk about that, but we have a lot of men already out there in the financial sector, and we need them to see the value and the opportunity of these types of deals because, I think, Lelemba, you said it really well earlier, money is being left on the table by failing to recognize the opportunity of all these women. And Zambia in particular has one of the highest number of female entrepreneurs on the African continent, which has one of the highest numbers of female entrepreneurs globally, right? And I just want to say for a second, because I saw a question in there about this question about debt. Chanda works for Zanaco, which obviously is a bank, a commercial bank, which provides debt. And Lelemba is working with lots of different types of offerings and products, that combine some of the best of equity and the best of debt and blended finance and all kinds of things in between, which is, some of the solutions that we need. The Rallying Cry actually surveyed a number of women across Zambia and Kenya, agribusiness entrepreneurs. And we found a really interesting thing, right? After COVID or during COVID, people were really allergic to debt. They were not excited about debt because they really felt that there was too much risk. And a lot of people lost their shirts, their homes, their businesses during COVID when loans came due. And so for a lot of women, they're concerned about debt. And in Zambia in particular, debt is really expensive, right? Interest rates are high. And I think, you know, there's a lot of issues across the African continent and many parts of the world around women's ownership of land, property, collateral, all the things that you need to tick the traditional boxes for debt. At the same time, women, most of the women founders don't even qualify for equity. They're too small, the ticket sizes are tiny, and there's no visibility and all of the things. But even then, they're saying, we scrimped and saved. These are our babies. We don't want some foreigner from outside, you know, come in and tell us how to run our business, right? And so there's a real gap between this need for local solutions in local language, in local, you know, operating environments. And so we need to see more local fund managers and vehicles like what Lelemba is starting be part of the solutioning. And finally, the last piece, just to close out that analysis, is, you know, we see a big reliance on grants and a lot of female founders saying, we're just looking for grant money. But that's not really a sustainable business model for the long term. So grants might be helpful in getting to the next step and stage in your business, but it's never going to be a long-term solution. And so the things that, you know, Chanda, that you guys are offering with your Z Women's Banking product, you know, with collateral-free loans and concessional interest rates are helpful to bridge that gap. And the things that Lelemba is doing, you know, with more patient capital, with more friendly or women-friendly terms, I think are really important to closing some of those gaps between entrepreneurs and opportunity and capital. So let's turn it. So we kind of looked at Sarah and Chanda, that's how you are on my screen, and Lelemba and Bupe. The two of you have just closed a transaction. Shall we talk a little bit about that? I don't know which way to start. Maybe Lelemba, let's start with the capital. And what was exciting to you about Bupe's story and her business and how this ticks your climate and gender ambitions?
Yeah. So I think what we try to do with the Empress Fund, because it is still the pre-seed level, so the ticket sizes are not that big. They average around $50,000, is to ensure that whatever we're going to invest in the women's business is actually something that could be catalytic and move them to the next stage of growth and, you know, widen their revenue, widen their opportunities that they can see, and potentially put them in a position then to be able to access more formalized funding, like Chanda's bigger pockets than ours. So with Bupe particularly, I think there was a lot of traction that she's already had with her strawberry farm. And one of the pain points for them was having some wastage after every season and the need to think about how they start processing some of the products so that there's you know, longer shelf life and more revenue, I guess. And so part of their plans was to start hydrating some of the strawberries to give it longevity and to add value as well, because that creates a whole different product altogether. And so the case was pretty clear. She knew exactly what she wanted to put the money in. The traction that she'd had was already really impressive, more or less working on her own steam. And so it was quite a quick deal to close. Her financials were ready. And yeah, we loved what she was doing, and we loved Bupe herself. Because you can't forget that businesses are actually driven by people at the end of the day. So we loved her ambition. We loved what she'd already achieved. Yeah.
Thank you, Lelemba. I'm just conscious of the time because it's flown by. I don't know how it feels for everybody else in the audience, but the time has gone really fast. And I feel like I could speak to you ladies all day and
Yeah.
I think we would learn a lot. I'm just going to take one or two questions from the audience, and then I want to make sure we close out with, you know, really thinking about what do we from this session want to take to COP, and what would we want to feed back to the She Changes climate team. But I see Lenka raised a question about impacts on nature considered in your investments, and do you see any differences about how these impacts are considered by male versus female entrepreneurs? So maybe both that looks like the question is for both Chanda and Lelemba.
Yeah. We do consider the impacts on nature. It's not always that clean cut and easy. You find that there are a lot of businesses that on the one side, for example, might be doing a great job at recycling, or food preservation, but on the other hand are using, cutting down trees, using that as fuel as part of their processes. I haven't seen a particular difference between male versus female in this context. What I have seen is really just that what access they do have to energy. And so that's why it's really difficult to look at agri, energy, and climate separately because they interact so much. And we look at it more as the intersections of those when we're looking at our investment, but we do consider that. And it's challenging, particularly when you're trying to fund people in the rural areas, just they don't have access to any other energy source. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Chanda, same question to you.
Just to add, so yes, we do consider the impact on nature. That's really critical for us. As Lelemba has said, we really haven't started to track that based on gender yet. That's something that is an ambition for us and something that we're looking to do. We do realize that there's some tools available. I was listening to a podcast this morning by CIBC Bank in Canada, and they were talking about a tool that they use to track this. And that's something that, we were saying, something we can consider for ourselves as well. So when we get that tool and start to track that, we'll be able to see the impact based on whether it's a male-run business or a female-run business. But the impact on nature, definitely that's something that we consider whenever we're giving funding to a climate smart initiative, whether it's a climate smart initiative in agriculture or whether it's a climate smart initiative by a woman or a man. So something that we'll definitely start to track going forward.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Lenka. And, if I'm honest, if we think about the genesis of the rallying cry, we chose and started with women on purpose, partly because we believe that female leadership, right, which feminine leadership can be found both in men and women, is one of the things that we're missing. And we also see women, particularly in Africa, in the African context, as sort of the ones who traditionally hold a lot of the stories from the past, right? They take on sort of the indigenous techniques and wisdom. The stories are handed down through generations and often reside with the women. Women are also in many cases, the custodians for the future. They're tending their families and their gardens and their soil and thinking about how we're feeding future generations. And they're of course very present in this now. And so there is a certain amount of collective as well as individual wisdom that we think connects women more to nature sometimes than men. And so as two women on the front lines, working daily with your hands in the soil, Bupe, do you think that you approach nature and impacts on nature differently than some of your male counterparts in the business?
Yeah, definitely. It's a passion of mine that I've gotten to a point where I've realized that, nature has got a major role to play in my business and in every other business, especially in the food production. So we have decided or have gone into a point where we have gone back to nature, to speak to nature, and nature will tell us what it feels. Because we've realized that we haven't had production, we haven't had a good production. In turn, we haven't had a good, healthy production, both for the human being and also for the environment. So we just realized that, we need to go back to the old methods of growing food product, the old methods of feeding. And, with everything that we consume, we have to get back to nature. So I think there's a great impact that I've noticed. The way women relate to nature is different from the way men relate to nature. I'll talk about Zambia because mainly Zambia, it was in the recent past a taboo for a woman like myself to run a farming business. It was majorly run by men. and women were there just to support or just rally behind them. So we've gotten to a point where the woman can be on the front line. The woman can also have a share on the table of running an agriculture business, a processing business, a manufacturing business, and also, play a role. In a nutshell, I think a woman is created for nature. We are nurturing, we are loving, we are caring. So it resonates with the environment as well. So we take all that love, all that care, we give it back to the environment. So definitely the impact is there, because you can see with the production line that we have, we've noticed that after giving a lot of love to the soil, after healing it, it has been able to give us back with love. And at this stage where we've reached, we're actually looking at terms of amplifying our voice in letting everybody else who's partnering with us to know that we need to go back to the land and speak to it and heal it so that it's able to feed back to us. So I would employ most of the partners that are on this platform, and also investors like the ones we have on this panel, to actually look at a woman-based business and look at the potential that we are able to give out. Look at the potential and look at it in terms of how are we able to give back? How are we able to give back to the environment? How are we able to give back to nature? How are we able to give back to human race? So we put all that in one cocoon and actually just think about how best can we heal the land? How best can we help the environment to love us back? So the great impact in the way we love the environment back, the way we relate to it, the way we care for it, I think that's where the greatest impact will come from.
Thank you, Bupe. Hear, hear. Heal the soil, heal ourselves, maybe heal the planet. I think there's a lot to be said about regenerative farming and really thinking about regenerating the soil in terms of the role that the women have to play. And of course, we see a number of studies these days are evidencing the fact that when you have more women in boards, you have more women in investment committees, you have more women in top leadership roles of some of the biggest companies around the world, they tend to make decisions that are better for the environment and are less polluting and are contributing less carbon to the atmosphere. I mean, the statistics are starting to bear this out, as well as the sense that we have about the role that women have to play in taking care of the soil, the planet, and our future generations. And of course, the She Changes Climate team has been absolutely tireless and amazing in the amount of data and stories and reporting that they have shared on their website, on LinkedIn. This is where I get so much amazing data about what women are really doing to contribute to the solutions. So what do we want to take to COP? What do we want to send with the She Changes Climate team and for Lelemba and Chanda and Bupe and Bokgolo and myself and all of those on the line that are going to or already are in Sharm el Sheikh? You know, what do we want to take to COP? And the message, you know, that I'm hearing is we need to look at opportunities starting from the ground level. We need to have inclusive voices, right? Having women from the front lines of climate change being elevated and amplified in the forefront of the climate leadership conversations that we need to have. To me, it's about creativity and innovation. Both Chanda and Lelemba are finding new ways to get capital to the ground level. But I also see there are challenges. You know, Lelemba, as you know, might understand that it's hard for not only someone like Bupe to raise money, but sometimes it's hard for Lelemba to raise money. So we need the international financial sector to be part of the solutioning and also flowing that capital down to local solutions, local capital providers like Zanaco, like Africa Trust Group. And so we're going to be looking at how do we unlock and unleash that capital and all those billions that have been earmarked by the different COP parties over the last couple of years to make sure that it actually gets to the ground level. So we'll put up together our sort of list of suggestions, maybe even demands that we want to send into COP. And I just want to thank everybody for being here to listen to the conversation, and of course to our speakers. So final word. I'm just curious now, as our whole selves, as we're headed into this next round of COP on African soil, which, for better or worse, has been challenging for some of you to get your visas to even get into a country on your own continent. One word, how you're feeling as we're heading into COP. I'm very curious. Bupe, one word, how are you feeling?
Optimistic.
Excellent. Sarah?
Into COP. But I feel excited that women like Bupe will be there to represent us, because we really champion the same, interests. So
Excited.
we are behind you and, running and pushing and clapping. And you must say, don't keep quiet. You must stop talking and start doing.
Thank you, Sarah. Leilamba, one word. How are you feeling? Leilamba.
Encouraged. I will say that what stood out for me from Sarah's conversation was the $10 million seed bank, because those are the type of projects we want to put forward. That when you're thinking about financing women in climate, it's not just grant funding, it's real money and real projects. So encouraged. Yeah.
Beautiful. Chanda, final word.
My one word is ready. So as the NACO, we are ready. We're ready to partner. We're ready to make sure that we can draw finances from these great partnerships that we'll be able to forge even after COP, and pass it on to the businesses that need it. So pass it on to Sarah, pass it on to Bupe and their businesses. So we are ready.
Excellent. So my final word, of course, is to thank the She Changes Climate team. And I am grateful to all of you for being here, and to these particular amazing trailblazing African ladies who are making it happen. So much, much gratitude. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks
Great
for having us.
session.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.